Dallas Cowboys fall for the first time in 2023. 28-16, the final scores. The Arizona Cardinals at State Farm Stadium outlast the Cowboys. They start in front, they finish in front in week 3 of the NFL season. This is the first word presented by Dr. Pepper from the Star in Frisco. We have Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, Barry Church. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Plenty to talk about in the Cowboys' first downfall of the season. Barry, I'll start with you. The offensive line banged up.
Yes.
You don't have Trayvon Diggs. But it didn't really feel like that was the only problem for the Cowboys in this loss. It might have started there, certainly. But what were your initial thoughts on the loss in Arizona?
Yeah, when you talk about the offensive line, it was a little leaky, and that's going to happen when you have a lot of substitutes coming in there. But I think they did a good enough job for the offense to still move the ball and still go out there and put up points. As we saw here, they won the time of possession. So the offense was able to move the ball relatively okay. They weren't able to make the plays that they needed to make to win the game, but they moved it relatively okay. For me, the big disappointment in this game, it's got to be defensively. This is the team that went up from last year, that running game. We thought that, that Achilles heel was behind us. It didn't look like that today, all right, because the Arizona Cardinals rushed for 222 yards against a Dallas team. And I understand this Arizona team is scrappy. They're going to fight you to the end. But when you give up 222 yards defensively, there's not much you can do, because at that point, offenses can basically pick their poison. They can either throw the ball on you with play action, or they can run it down your throat. And that's exactly what Arizona was able to do to the Dallas Cowboys defensively this afternoon.
You're absolutely correct, Barry. And when you look at the yardage that they were able to have on the ground, right? We knew that was always a question mark going into the season, whether or not Dallas had really secured that aspect of their openness, right?
Yes.
Their question mark that they had. Go out and get Big Mozzie Smith. Obviously, you re-sign Jonathan Hankins. First 2 weeks in the season, you take care of those teams that had nice rushing attacks. But then you face a team that wants to come downhill on you with Big James Conner, and all of a sudden, here we go, right? And you start to figure out exactly what do you have up front. You let out a couple big runs by Dobbs early in the game. That really kind of extended things. And then what really put you on your back was your penalties. 13 penalties, 107 yards. It's hard to overcome any kind of opponent when you are hurting yourself 13 times in one game.
I'm with you. I'm a rebound. I'm gonna go with you on that. The penalties. 13 for 107. They came out. They scored from the beginning with 3. Then they came back and scored again. We didn't answer. And then right before the third, we went for something. I'm thinking we're gonna go for the 3. We went for the 6. We kept giving them the momentum. Then we think we have them down. Big Mike Wilson, the rookie, he comes out of nowhere with big plays. They were the big play team. Our defense wasn't as stout. Like Barry said, we gave up too many yards in the rush game. When you got going two ways, all of a sudden, our defensive coordinator go from a mad scientist to like everybody else. Hey, what am I going to do next?
Yes.
He couldn't set his defense. Now, normally, we set the defense. We're like, hey, we got a 8-man front back there, 3 rushing or 4 rushing, and we making things happen. The day we didn't have that. We had guys running free, guys running open. Deron Bland wasn't that same guy we saw in the slot. He wasn't the same guy outside. Sure. It's a different responsibility. We missed Zach Martin. And we miss Diggs, but 2 our all-pro players.
Yes.
Yeah, you're missing those guys. You really are. But I want to talk about the run defense. It's one of the things that, Isaiah, you highlighted there. But you're supposed to shore that up throughout the offseason. And certainly it looked like that was the case at certain points throughout the first 3 games. But they gave up 222 yards on the ground, 222. That would have ranked second worst in the entire 2022 season, only behind the Bears game that had 240 yards rushing, a lot of that from Justin Fields. So when you're looking at this run defense, where does it start? Where do you need to see an uptick? Because right now, you're not getting an uptick from a whole lot of area there, whether it's the inside, the outside, setting the edge. You name it, where do you want it to start?
Yeah, when you talk about start, I think it always starts in the interior defensive line. I believe that everybody plays a role in the run defense, right? So when you start talking about run support, you need your cornerbacks to come up and fill the gaps.
Yes.
You need your safeties to come up and fill. And I feel like guys are tackling, but they're not hitting, right? So you start talking about the second-level guys, Damone Clark, Van Der Esch, they're coming up and trying to wrap up. You can't wrap up a Connor. You can't catch a Connor, right? You're gonna catch a first down is what you're gonna have. What's gonna happen, right? So you got to come down here. You got to hit these guys in the mouth and set the tone. And when you're on the receiving end of that, all of a sudden these guys get confidence. And when they're able to rumble for another 5 or 6 yards after first contact, then all of a sudden big fellas like Big Nate, they start looking at each other and telling coach, do it again, do it again, and however here it comes. And then you just can't stop it. And then there you start seeing the finger pointing. You start seeing Michael Parsons and Van Der Esch getting into it because they're frustrated. And then when you see that body language, the other team knows they got you.
It starts with Osa, number 97, and it starts with number 95 with Jonathan Hankins. They got to seal that middle. They got to be in their gaps. They got to eat up block.
The pointing part about this rushing attack is you got it both ways. You got the cats going downhill right up the middle for big chunk yardage, and then you also saw this team being able to eclipse the edge and get outside, and that's something that we haven't seen from this Cowboys team. Usually you're able to gash them through the middle. That was all last year. This year it happened both ways. Guys are getting reached on the edge. When you're in man-to-man coverage, you're not using their eyes. They're just, focusing on one thing, and guys are getting trapped inside. The edge is just wide open. So, to me, they got to go back into the lab, and they got to put some work in, because it's very disappointing when you see a defense as strong as the Dallas Cowboys is to be able to allow guys to go up the middle and on the outside.
Yeah, there's really there's multiple levels of this. Defensively, certainly. I think special teams, they did their job for the most part. There were a couple penalties. We can talk about penalties all on its own as well. 11 of them in the first half. Nate, I want to talk about the offensive side of the ball, though. You outgain Arizona 416 to 400. That tells me you don't get the job done in the red zone. It happened again. You had a turnover on downs in the red zone. You had multiple field goal opportunities that, of course, were made by Brandon Aubrey. Did his job. That's a good, positive thing. But it's the second week in a row you weren't able to finish drives as an offensive unit inside the 20-yard line. How does that change going into next week against the Patriots?
Details. Everything happens so quick. The field is shrunk, and you only got 10 to 15 yards. Just a little nudge, I can knock him off the ball. You got to know your assignments, and it got to be detailed. And that's where we're missing at. And we have to sometime go on and get the 3. Just to put us a little bit closer. When you look up at the scoreboard, you're looking at it for the defense too. They want to know that you're a little bit closer, and that gives them a little bit of hope. But we lost all hope when every time we go down there, we don't get anything. And I'm telling you, as a teammate, I know what Barry's saying to me, like, come on, man. When the offense is inside the red zone and you 0 for 2, that's a come on, man, and the defense don't want to hear it.
Yeah, speaking to that, I mean, Dallas had 8 possessions today. It ended in punt, field goal, touchdown. Cool. Punt, field goal, turnover on downs. Field goal, interception. That's exactly what Nate's talking about right now. That's what Kyle's alluding to. You have to be able to finish those drives out. You brought it up last week. It showed his ugly head again today. Coach McCarthy has to find a way to get these guys in the end zone, whether that be mixing up the play calling, maybe that mean messing with the personnel groupings. But you have to get 6. 3's not going to get it, especially when teams can run the ball.
Yeah, you have to finish in the red zone. But what we talked about earlier in pregame was when you get in trouble, when teams get in trouble like this, when you talk about trap games, it's when you get out of yourself. When you offensively, you're throwing the ball 40 to 50 times. What did the Cowboys do today? They threw the ball 40 times. Defensively, this is where you get caught up. When you're undisciplined, giving up chunk plays. What did we talk about? The only way Arizona was able to make this a game is if the Cowboys gave up big chunk plays. We've seen a huge 45-yarder from Josh Dobbs. We've seen another big one to Wilson, who you had talked about in the pregame. Speed. I mean, there was big plays everywhere, all right? And that's how you get caught in these trap games. And the Cowboys, they ended up getting caught.
So you used the term trap game there. It was a term that was thrown around. Well, the trap happened.
Yeah, it did.
It got you. 2-1. That's where the Cowboys are now. But it's over with. It's done. How do you move on? How do you get better going into the week? You've got some injuries to take care of, especially up front. 3 offensive lineman starters out today when you thought all 5 guys were going to be good to go for the first time this year. Where do you start if you're looking forward to week 4?
Well, I'm going to just look defensively. They got to shore up that run game 100% of the field. We understand they got to shore that up. And you also got to look at DeRon Bland on the outside. I know it was his first game out there, but he didn't look like he understood the assignment when you're going outside. 2 areas that the defense definitely needs to step up in.
I'm going to double down on that. You have to be able to have the run defense show up.
Yes.
Reason being, you got 2 teams that you're about to play that are disciplined enough to run the ball if they wanted to, 60 plays out of 65 if they really wanted to. They're that disciplined. You talk about New England, you talk about San Francisco 49ers. So you got to figure that out ASAP. But also, you have to find a way. You have to find a way to punch the ball in the end zone.
Got to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just at this point, it's becoming unacceptable, right? And you're starting to question, okay, where's, everybody was asking prior to today, where's Gallup at? You know what I'm saying? Well, Gallup showed up today. But then when Gallup shows up, where was Cooks? Where's Cooks? Where's our big acquisition? We're dropping the ball at the tight end position. Like, we're not getting our guys to play the ball. Did you ever see Deuce in the game? No. Didn't see any of the personnel changes that we saw early on in the season. So you have to get that mixture going again so that you can keep the defenses off guard.
And I know this is early, but we have to keep up with the 49ers. We have to keep up with Philadelphia because you want to have a chance at that home field advantage. And I know it's early. I know it's only 3 games in. We got to be more disciplined as a team, and we got to know that we can beat teams of this ilk that we just played. We can't we can't look back 5 weeks from now, right around Thanksgiving, and say if. Now our back's against the wall, and maybe you may not be feeling that way, but I would be feeling that way. And now we got to make sure we stay on track.
It happens every year.
Yes.
Good teams lose games to teams they shouldn't. It does. It certainly happens, but you got to grow from it.
Yes.
Great teams will overcome that, and they'll get better as the season goes along. Like Nate just said, it's early. It's week 3. No need to panic, but there are some certain things that are starting to rear back up for this Dallas Cowboys team, some weaknesses that have to be shored up if they want to get to the ultimate goal of where they want to go. We'll leave you with some of the final stats here on the First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper. Dallas outgains Arizona, but Arizona outscores the Dallas Cowboys. 28-16, the final score from State Farm Stadium. Stick with us on DallasCowboys.com. We have more post-game reaction coming with Cowboys Game Night, Cowboys OT as well. Locker room reaction, live interviews, and plenty more coming your way with Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Yeomans. That does it for us on the First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper.